Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your favorite photographer Divan Sosoko. So on this video I'm going to show you guys how I edited this picture, starting from the frequency separation, the color grading, the teeth whitening and everything. So without wasting much time, let's just get to it. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel for more helping tutorial videos. So let's get into this. So at first, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to duplicate this background layer into two, so which is this and this. I'll rename this upper layer as one, then I will rename the second as two. So while I'm giving the explanation, you guys can really get it. So first of all, I'm going to select the layer 2 and I'll hide the visibility of the layer 1. So selecting the layer 2, I'll get to the filter, then I'll hit on the Gaussian blur. So the Gaussian blur, I'm going to use the radius 4, which I'm going to hit OK after that. So once I'm done with that, I'll come right back to the upper layer 1. So I'll now open the visibility. So you can now see when it's on the layer 2, it's actually blur, but once I get up here, I'll now bring the sharpness back. So selecting the layer 1, I'll now get to image and I'll click on adjustment. I'll get to apply image. So once I click on apply image, this is actually how it's going to show. So on the layer, I'll actually match this layer 1 to the 2. So which I'll do, I'll match it. So the channel RGB, it's fine. So the blending, I'm going to change it to subtract. So after changing it to subtract, yours might not show like this, but you need to take note of these settings. The opacity should be at 100, the scale at 2, and the offset at 128. So once you have this correct, you can hit OK. So after doing that, I'll come right to this blending mode also, then I'll now change it to linear light. So after changing it to linear light, I actually have my image back and it's actually sharp. So the layer 1 is actually the skin texture. It takes care of the skin texture, while the layer 2 takes care of the skin color. So I'll now group the two layers. After selecting the two, I'll now drag it to the group. So I'll name this group as FS. So I'll open it. I'll now use the layer 1, which is for the skin texture, to take out blemishes. So I'll zoom it to the face. So what I'm going to use to pick the blemishes is actually the chrome stamp. So after picking the chrome stamp, I'll now reduce it to make it smaller. So I'll now pick on the small blemishes on the skin. While I think the chrome stamp is best, it's because it doesn't leave scar on the image if you use it perfectly. So you need to take note, or sometimes you zoom it in more so you know where you have actually taken the blemishes off, so that you won't leave scar on the image. So once I'm done picking the blemishes, I'll now come back to this layer 2, which is actually for the skin color. So I'll now start brushing it. I'll pick my mixer brush. So I'll now change it to a clean brush and make sure the weight is at 30, the load at 30, the mix at 30, and the flow at 30. So once you get all these settings right, you're good to brush. So I'll just start brushing the image. So while brushing, you need to take note, you don't mix the highlights and the shadows. What you do is you try blending the two, not getting rid of any. So you can now see the image is now looking smooth. So I think that is much. So I'll just make the brushing very mild on the skin. So after brushing, I've now noticed some blemishes which I need to take off, but let me just finish brushing. So after brushing, I'll take off the blemishes on the part I think it's not really okay. So what I'm going to do, I'll come back to the layer one, then I'll select on it, then I'll pick on the clone stamp. So I'll now start picking the blemishes on where I don't want it to be. So I'll come right to this place, then I'll take a bit of it off. So each time I do pick the blemishes, I do advise you brush it back once you're done picking the blemishes. So I'll now come back to the mixer brush, then I'll start brushing all over again just to get the smoother looks. So once I'm done with the face, I'll actually start brushing the neck. I don't want this, it's actually a male picture and it's actually my picture, so I don't want it to look like a cartoon or an AI picture. So I'll just make it mild brushing, so you can now see the before and the after on the face. So I'll now get to the hand. So I'll start brushing. So I just want this part to look a little bit smooth. Then I'll now come back to the texture layer. Then I'll now pick on my clone stamp just to pick a little bit of the blemishes right here, which I won't take much of it. So I just take a little here, I'll take a little here also, and here. So after picking that, I'll brush it. So I'll come back to brushing it. I'll brush this part as well. So it's actually a video, that's why I'm brushing. While doing yours, you don't need to be fast like this, especially if you're a beginner. So you need to take time and study. So I'll pick on the clone stamp again, just to pick these blemishes off. So I think that part is okay, the before and after. I don't want it to look so obvious, so I'll just brush a little bit again. Then I'll get to the other part of the hand which didn't show much, so I'll just make a little bit brushing just to make it look smooth. So after I'm done with that, I'm going to zoom back the image, and what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to make, like, I'll zoom it out and make finishing touch on it. So I'll just brush it while here, because when I zoom the image it will look perfect, but zooming it out, I'll see some parts which didn't blend well. So after that, you can now see the before and after of it. This is actually how I did the frequency separation. So what I'm going to do next is actually the brightness of the background. The brightness of the background is overwhelming the subject. So I'll just close this. And what I need to do now is that I want to create a new layer, which I'm going to click. I will press it on my system, the Shift Option Command E to create a new layer. So after creating this new layer, I'll actually group it also. So after grouping it, what I need to do now is that I want to select the subject, which I will head to the select, is actually on the group, sorry. So I'll select this layer. So I'll get to my subject. I'll just select the subject and wait for it to load. So once it's done loading, it's actually going to select the subject for me. So after doing that, there might be some errors. I'll just use my lasso tools to correct some errors on it. So I'll just take this down, but there is no much error on it. So after doing that, I'll actually create a mask on the group right here. So I'll now come right here and I'll click. So after doing that, if I want anything I apply to be on the background only, not the subject, so I'm going to invert the mask. So I've done that. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to reduce the brightness of the background. So I'll just bring this down. I think I'll add a little bit contrast to it. So I'll bring it down. You can now see the image is popping out very nice right now. So what next I'm going to do is that I will adjust the yellow and green a bit. So I'll take this part here, I'll take this here, I'll add a little bit yellow, then I want it to be dark. So I'll now select the green also. If I bring it here, this is actually, but I want it to be greenish. So I'll add the magenta a bit, the yellow, then I want the green to be dark. So after doing that, you can now see the background is now dim. This is the before and this is the after of it. The picture is actually coming out really nice. So I'm done with the background right now. So this is actually the little I did on it, but yours, you can choose to do anything, but let it be inside the group. Anything you wish to do on the background, you can do it, but you need to be inside the group. So what next I'm going to do, I want to whiten the eye and the teeth. So what I do using whitening the eye and the teeth is actually the vibrance. So I'll now desaturate it. Let me just type in 70. So after typing in 70, I'm going to invert the mask. So after after I invert the mask, I'll pick on my brush tool and make sure the opacity at 100, flow at 100. So I'll reduce it and I'll paint through. So make sure your hardness tool is at 50. So now I'll start painting on the area which I want it to be applied on. So why the effect is not really looking much is that I want it to look natural as possible. So I don't want it to be much. But if you want to see the area of which I've had the effect, you can now see it's actually the teeth and the eye. So after doing this, I'm going to zoom it out. You can now see the before and after of it. It's still looking much natural, which is actually what I want. So right now I'm getting into blending the skin tone. I'm making the skin tone look even. So in my previous video, I showed you guys how to get an even skin tone using the solid color. So on this video also, I'm going to use the same method. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down here, then I'll now click on the solid color. So it's actually from the foreground color, that is why it's showing me white. I'll just hit on OK. So after hitting on OK, sorry, I forgot to. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to pick the area which I think it's the mid-tone of this image, right here. So I'll pick on this eyedropper tool just to pick it. So I'll come here, but while picking it, make sure you are on a layer, not a mask or any adjustment. So I'll just pick right here. I think that's the mid-tone. So I'll come right here, I'll come down, then I'll hit on the solid color. So this is actually the color I picked from the skin, so I'll hit OK. So what I need to do now is changing the blending mode to soft light. So after changing it to soft light, you can now see how the skin tone will look like. So I'm going to invert this layer mask, which I'm going to hit on the command I to invert it. So what I'm going to do now is just to brush out the part which I want the effect to be added on. But I actually have a selection of the skin, so I'm just going to load the selection of the skin right here. I already selected it, but if you haven't selected yours, you can use the brush as I'm using, then you just increase it, then you make sure the foreground is at white so that it can unveil what is on the black. So you can now start brushing if at all you didn't make a selection. But if you did make a selection, you can just delete the part which you want the effect to be on. But if you did not, you just take your time and brush the skin. So after doing that, I will now deselect it. It's kind of looking saturated and all that, but you shouldn't worry about that. So I'm just going to reduce the opacity to the level which I think it's okay. So I think 42 is perfect. Let me take it to 45. So you can now see the before and after. I actually blended the skin tone right here. So I've now evened the skin tone. But if you look right to this hand, this part of the hand and the face, it's actually having two different colors. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come and now pick on this same selection. So I'll now pick on the lasso tool. So I'll now hit on the alt. So I'll take out the bright part. So only this part which I want to brighten. So I'll add fader to it. So I'll just add 66. So I'll come to the curve. Then I'll now take this up. So after taking this up, I'll now bring it down so the skin tone will still be on top. Why I'm doing this is that I don't want the parts which I've added the brightness to be kind of white and all that. So bringing it down, the skin tone is still on the subject, but the brightness has increased a bit. So now I'm done with frequency separation, setting the background, and also whitening the teeth and the eye, and I have also evened the skin tone. So I'm now heading to the final color grading. So on the final color grading, I do use the selective color, I use the color balance, I use the brightness, and contrast, I use the levels. And also sometimes I do use the hue and saturation, but not in most. So I'll now come and I'll select the selective color. So I'll start by using the red. So the red actually deals with the skin tone on this image right here. So if I take it down here, it's just the skin and some parts here. So I'm actually a dark skin, so I'll take this slide to 5. So I'll add a little bit of magenta. I think 3 is perfect. So I don't want it to look yellowish, so I'll just take this to 0. I'll add black to it. 7 is fine. So I'll come to the yellow. The yellow also have a little role to play in the skin tone, and it has a big role to play on the background. So while I'm making this adjustment, I need to be careful so that it won't affect the skin and it won't also affect the background, but I need to make it look even. So if I take this light to this, you can now see. So I'll just leave it at 9. So I'll add a little bit magenta and I'll add a little bit yellow on this part. So I'll just add black to it a bit. So I'll now select the green. I'll take this light to this, then I'll add magenta to it, then a little bit yellow, then I'll add black to it. So once I'm done with this, for the sake of the sky, I will take this to 15. So I'll now come to the white. So I want the sky to look a little bit bluish, so you can now see it here. So once I'm done with the selective color, you can now see the before and after of it. It has actually added effects to it. So I'll now come to the black, then I'll add the black to 2. So after doing that, what I'm going to do is the brightness and the contrast. So I'll add the brightness to 2 and I'll add the contrast to 2. So I'll now click on the level. So I'll play with this. If I want it to be dark, but I don't want it to be that dark, so I'll just take this to 2 as well. So and I'll add brightness to it so that it won't look dark. So after doing that, sorry guys, I will now come to the color balance. I do play only with this light, so I'll take this to -2 just to balance it. I will come right to the curves. I don't know, I won't use the curve. So after doing these few adjustments, let me actually group it so that you can see the before and after of it. So this is the before and after. It has actually created more contrast to the image and has also made the image pop out pretty well. So I've come to the end of this video. So this is actually the few method I do use while retouching my image. So if I just group everything I've done on this video, so you can now see the before and after of it. I've actually brought out the beauty of this image right here. So this is the before and after of it. So thank you guys for watching this video. I really hope it was helpful. Please, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel for more helping tutorial videos, and don't fail to check out my previous video which have done a couple of tutorial which will actually help you. So thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video, and do make sure you subscribe. Cheers.